Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 704. Let me try this in English. 752. I docked myself 10 grid places in podcasting for my engine change. Sorry about that. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to talk about news in Formula One. But you know what that means, of course. I have to introduce my guest, my co-host, my partner in crime, all the way over on the right coast of America. We're nestled in our nation's capital, where she has the world's biggest cat tree and a whole bunch of cats. And that's how she rolls. You know her, you love her. It's the lovely, the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing good. For the record, I only have 4.
4 cats. 4 cats. And 2 cat trees or 3?
That's just one cat
Oh, it's a
tree.
monster.
We have one in every room. It's the Burj Khalifa of cat trees.
It is. It is.
The one that we have downstairs in our den, I always joke that, because Flip had one cat when we started dating. And so Paime would sit way up at the top and just look over at me like, oh, you're back. You made it further than the last woman that he brought home. Let's see if you make it to the next one. It was very judgmental, as cats can be. But, you know,
Yes,
it's all fine now. 8 years later, we're buddies. But yes, for the longest time, she just sat at the top of the cat tree like, you're here again. Okay.
Well, if that's the Burj Khalifa, if I had that was the Burj Khalifa of cat tree, I think I'd go get me a 1/18 scale model of a Red Bull with David Coulthard in it and put it on top doing donuts.
That's right.
You
That's
know?
right.
Why not?
I think it also has an aquarium in it.
Huh.
Do that too.
How about that?
Their malls are crazy. You could it's a desert. It's hot. What else? I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania. That's all we did was go to the mall on the weekends. And the weather's not
Right.
even that terrible, right? Like, what else are you going to do?
You were the
Build-
western wilds of Pennsylvania.
Build amazing malls, right? So,
Right. Why not?
yeah.
That's exciting.
I
Grace,
once had
go ahead.
a friend who was very mad at me because I grew up going to the Monroeville Mall, which is where the George Romero movies were shot. And he's a big sci-fi fan. He found out this much later. Like, why was I holding out on him? I'm like, it's a mall. It's the mall I went to as a kid all the time. But it was like I had the Ark of the Covenant was the way he was,
right.
oh my God, you went to that mall. I'm like, yeah, it's still there. You can still go to that mall if you want to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a bucket list.
Yeah, because there's people that still live in Monroeville that were actually, because that movie was shot in Dawn of the Dead was shot in the 76 or something like that. So there are people
Yeah.
that still live there that were extras in the mall.
Ah,
So anyway, there you go.
how about that?
Monroeville, Pennsylvania trivia. If you ever want to
Oh,
go,
who knew?
Some parts still kind of look like that, but not much because it was shot in the 70s, and
Well, time marches
2021.
on.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, Grace, I am assuming that you went from the highs of highs to the lows of watching Russia.
Okay, so I have all right. One story. First of all, after Monza and McLaren's amazing race, and I said to Flip, imagine what McLaren could have been if Spygate hadn't happened to them. He liked that I used the phrase "happened to them" as if they had no role in it. I was like, yes, it happened to them.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
He's
imagine.
right. You had to act like it was like, gosh, that tornado came through, couldn't do anything about it.
Right. Imagine how great they could have been if Spygate had never happened to them.
Right.
So
Right.
I totally stick. So I guess my message is not only do I do that on the podcast, I'm like, it's 4 pages. What's the big deal? That's my whole life. So
Right.
it's fine. But yeah, Russia was a pretty rough race. I'm kind of used to McLaren. It's like, we finished 6th. Yay. And so
Yeah.
now that it's like, whoa, we might be on the podium. Whoa, we might win. I felt like Jean Todt, right? I needed when he was
Yeah.
at Ferrari, I need some band-aids on my fingers, and I can just kind of I think that's the most still I've sat through a race. It was like an hour and a half that I just sat there and didn't say anything. That doesn't, usually, when races always have that ebb and a flow.
Yeah.
And I always joke that how exciting the race is going to be, sarcastically, by how many laps in until they show you the restart again.
Yes.
So if it's like we're at the tail end of lap 1 and they're showing me the restart, buckle up, go get a
Yeah,
drink.
gonna be
Like
a
this is gonna
long
be a while,
race.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just like, oh, sometimes I'll go like, get something to drink or go do laundry or see what the cats are up to, just because there's never been a photo race, and so I was no watch the whole thing, and then that ended in
Mm,
disaster. But I thought the team handled. I mean, I thought McLaren was very supportive. I thought Lewis was, very friendly toward Lando.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
tough. I can't imagine. It wasn't apparently rushes in the Ardennes Forest. Where Spa, it was just raining everywhere. It was raining all through the Ardennes Forest and not just on one end of the track and the other end. But in Russia,
Right.
it was like dry over there and pouring down buckets over there. And Lando didn't know. So, but it could have been great because I was thinking there was the MotoGP race where Brad Bindle stayed out. He didn't go in for intermediates and he won the
Right.
race. So, it could have been great and it just wasn't. So.
Yeah, it
But
didn't end the way that you wanted it to. That's certainly for, I
yeah,
was thinking that whole time. I was like, oh man, 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 and then as soon as that all unfolded and everything, oh man, Grace is gonna be crushed.
I know it was. I just kind of sat there, but I mean,
Yeah,
I am happy for Carlos Sainz. So right on.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
good story there.
yeah.
We'll
It's
just
a great
focus
story.
on that.
Yeah,
there's always somebody. Everybody ends up in Ferrari, so there's always somebody that I can like. Carlos,
yeah.
Kimmy, Alonso.
Carlos is on my daughter's short list to marry.
Whew.
Yeah,
Wow,
who knew?
if he wasn't old enough to be my child, he'd be on mine too.
Old enough to be your child. Yeah. So
Yeah,
she's got two or three of them picked out.
I support that.
Yeah, yeah. Carlos is maybe on the top of her list, but Charles Leclerc is like right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I
I,
know.
I I like Carlos has great hair. I have very thin hair
Yes.
as a blonde, so it's very thin. I wish I could have like Lance Stroll hair, where you think, is he wearing a Russian hat? No, that's his hair.
Yeah.
Like my hair nobody will ever make that mistake about my hair. So
Yeah.
Carlos has just this like luxurious like Pantene, shampoo model kind of hair that I was just like,
I
oh
know.
man, my hair will never be that thick.
Do you
Living the
remember
dream.
when we were in Austin at the Grand Prix and they had that cardboard or that cutout of Kimi Räikkönen with the shampoo
deodorant.
ad and the deodorant and the shampoo?
Yeah, it's because I brought Flip back a little sample of Degree underarm,
And,
like a
and we all
deodorant. Like,
walked up
here you go.
and the three of us looked at it and we all looked at each other and said, I'm not sure I've ever seen a bigger non sequitur than Kimi Räikkönen pimping shampoo. I just,
At a track, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
No.
You're right. It was very
it's
odd.
weird. Yeah.
And then there was just like a little bucket of samples. Like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll take one.
Is this what Kimi uses?
Sure.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and it's
weird.
probably good. I don't know. Race fans, they should, if they're anything like people that go to Comic-Con, maybe some free deodorant is always a good idea. We'll
Yeah.
just leave this here. You guys are outside all day. Maybe some free deodorant is a good idea.
Right. Right. That's where we need to get Paul. We need to get Paul to go to these races in full LARPing mode, so he's like totally dressed up as Kimi or whatever. That would be good for Paul.
Like I always enjoyed that too. The first time I was in Canada, 2005, and you'd see people that are in like head to toe Ferrari gear. So that was always fun while you're waiting for the next support race to start. Was like, how much do you think that guy's outfit is? Right. This
Yeah,
was before
yeah.
the interweb, so you kind of just had to like, I bet that shirt's like $50. Oh, do you think it's just a t-shirt? Right. Like,
Yeah.
so you couldn't just look up the price, but that
Well,
was always a fun
that's
game.
F1 merch pricing.
yeah.
That's on a galactic scale. We've talked about this. And for you newer to the podcast, if you ever hear Grace and I talk about the $100 carbon
key fob.
fiber key fob, you'll know what we're talking about.
That's right. That was
Yeah.
it was Bernie Eccleston's attempt to give us what we wanted with some cheaper merch.
Yeah. Yeah. You need cheaper merch. Okay. That's great. Here's a $100 carbon fiber key fob. Go get that. That's good. And it's like
Yeah.
$100 for a key fob.
It says F1 on it. It doesn't even
Yeah.
like support my team. Nobody's gonna be
Right.
like, oh, you're into F1? Me too.
Yeah. If it had the Ferrari logo on it, it'd be $200. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I did once meet a guy who was wearing a McLaren jacket. This is back in the day, right? He was wearing a McLaren jacket. It was a Kimi Räikkönen, so it was the old West logo. And
Yeah.
I was really excited because how often do you bump into a McLaren fan ever? Here, he just liked the jacket. He didn't know anything about Formula One. And I was like, but you're like, I was very confused because you had to spend some money on this jacket and you don't like, and McLaren, like people buy Ferrari stuff. People know Ferraris. McLarens are a known car brand, but not like Porsche, Ferrari, or something like that. And so it's still not something you see people supporting. And then I was like, well, so then I like pivoted, like, well, okay, well, you should learn about the team. Somebody else is going to have the same questions that I do, that you should know about this jacket you're wearing. And I'm like, so he's like, all right, who are the drivers? I'm like, well, there's Kimi Räikkönen. And he goes, a girl drives for this team? I'm like, I'm out of here. This conversation is over.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably an F1 fan and you probably had your own stories and funny stories. So my boss is super awesome guy and great guy, and he likes cars too. And so he's he's been to a couple of those driving experiences. He's got a Porsche and he loves cars. He's not a petrol head, but he likes cars. He doesn't watch Formula One or anything like that. Doesn't know anything about it. Because it's not his sport. But he went to like a McLaren event where they were driving McLarens, like a sports car event. Sports car experience event. And so when I first met him, when he joined our company a year or so ago, anyway, we were talking about cars and he found out that I do this F1 podcast, and he was like, oh yeah, I was talking about the cars. He goes, well, yeah, we did a McLaren driving experience thing. And he said, we all went out and drove these awesome McLarens around, and they had a guy come in, like a Formula One driver, I think, come in. And I said, oh, really? Who do you remember who it was? No, he was kind of supposed to be sort of a big deal in Formula One. And a lot of times they may be McLaren's own driver, like test drivers or program drivers who, for all the right reasons, are awesome drivers, no doubt.
That's just not the two primaries, right?
Right, but not like the Formula One drivers, right? So sometimes it's easy to get confused, and so he's like, no, I mean, it was a Formula One guy. It was like some Finnish guy. I said, was it
this one or this one?
Was it Mika Hakkinen? He goes, that's it. It was that
Holy
guy.
Shit.
And so then he sent me pictures of him in a car with Mika. And I said, John, the guy's like a two-time world champ. You weren't with some Formula One guy. You were with a guy that took on Schumacher and beat him twice. I mean, Mika's awesome,
Yeah, you were with, Mika goddamn Hakkinen, right?
Yeah. I mean, come on, man. Mika's awesome. So
wow.
So anyway,
I think
it's those things when people orbit or they bounce into some sort of F1 lore or some sort of F1 merch or whatever it is, and they God love them, but they just don't follow the sport, so they don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal.
He's kind of a big deal. Yeah, you'd be right.
Kind of a big deal.
Mika, kind of a big deal. Hakkinen, yeah, kind of a big two-time world champion deal. Hakkinen,
yeah, pretty big deal. Yeah, so that's pretty. Yeah, that's the guy.
But then it made him feel better because he realized, oh well, I guess I was with royalty Formula One. Yes, you were. Yeah, you were. Yeah, and then I said, well, I kind of had a moment like that. And he was like, yeah. And I said, yeah. I drove with a 4-time world champion.
That's right.
Had to one up him by 2 championships. So anyway, good guy. It was a great story. All right, let's talk about some news.
All right.
Okay, so first up in the news, folks, the calendar still for 2022. Did I put 2022? It hasn't been released yet. Stefano Domenicali says he's going to release it, later this month. However, he was talking to, I believe it was Sky or Motorsport, one of them, and he was saying that there's going to be 23 races. But here's the thing. Let me read what he says. He says, quote, I can anticipate that for sure that the calendar will be done with 23 races. Of course, we'll be very respectful towards the COVID regulations issued around the world from the different governments, but that is our aim, that F1 can give this sign of hope and to go to normal things to enjoy. The idea is to make sure that there is right rhythm to the calendar. Amen. There are, of course, considerations related to periods to make sure logistically the flow has to be right. I would agree with that. And there's a lot of other world events, world racing events they have to avoid. One thing I can tell you without discovering too many things, I think it means revealing too many things. Yeah, sorry, Stefano. It's not your native language. Okay, I totally get it. I couldn't even say hi. Where's the bathroom in Italian? So
I think that clause is better. I'm going to use that now.
I like it. One thing I can tell you without discovering too many things is that next year the season will start in the middle of March and will finish in the middle of November. So this is me talking now. As the calendar expands, there is one element that could feature more prominently, and that's the inclusion of more sprint races. Now, here's what Stefano said. Stefano. I like to call him Stefano because it makes me feel all, worldly and makes me seem like I'm pronouncing Italian names correctly. But everybody on Formula One broadcasts call him Stefano. So he said, quote, "We said at the beginning of the year there would be 3 tests this year to make sure that we have the right plan for the future. The vast majority of the comments we received were super positive. Promoters are super happy because there is something new and important on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. We are receiving this positive feedback. Therefore, we need to know next year we have a great plan where we will consider also the points highlighted by people who did not like this format." What? Were there some? I thought you said super happy and super, okay. Generally speaking, it's been an incredible success, except for the people that didn't like it. I can say we will not go everywhere with sprint quali format. It is something we want to keep for 1/3 of the races, more or less, and to connect with a certain different way of giving rewards and points and to connect with specific circuits that, as you know, would make the difference. So there is a lot of food for thought. We will involve all the stakeholders, broadcasters, drivers, teams, promoters, and fans. We won't forget our role is to take the right decisions, consider all the points and the points of view of everyone. End quote. That was a lengthy quote. That was longer than I thought it was. That's more than I wanted to read, actually. I got lost reading that.
Well, he's Stefano Domenicali. He can speak as long as he wants.
Okay, so 23. 20, okay, I've done the math here on my super cheap calculator.
It's nice.
My Wexford. Do you like that? It's my Wexford calculator.
It's solar powered.
It's solar powered Wexford calculator. Don't anybody give me crap about my. See, I'm sure for those of you that just listen to the podcast, if you'd like to watch the grand excitement of two heads talking, we do put all of our podcasts on YouTube now, and you can see me holding up this classy Wexford 7. Yeah. I've done the math for you. Don't have to do the math. 7 races with a sprint race.
So I think
sounds like a challenging calendar. Grace, talk us through it.
I just don't feel like when Domenicali was at Ferrari, we had any conversation about how to say his first name. But now all of a sudden, that's every time that comes up.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember anybody having a problem with this before, but I don't know. I always called him Stefano. I thought maybe when he was at Ferrari, he was Stefano, but now he's at the FIA and he's Stefano.
Well, it could be. He's elevated now. He's the head of F1.
An Italian team. I don't know.
Maybe you've stepped up, a rung or two. Maybe you've gone from calling it Monaco to Monaco.
That's right.
Who knows?
Silverstone.
Bernie Eccleston.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The H.
Yes. The H. Yes. Yes.
So
H.
I was
he should put a U in his name somewhere like the British do, like color and favorite.
Right. Just put random letters in there like blonde. Just spell however you want.
Yeah, Stefano. Just put a U, the U silent.
Put some random like umlauts or something too. Like if you're gonna go all the way, put in some characters that don't.
Right. Put another U in like aluminium, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. If life isn't confusing enough.
Yeah. It's a damn shame what they did to the English language over there.
Something. Anyway, I think that All right. So sprint races, I thought the first one at Silverstone was great, but this is Formula One. So they figure things out very quickly. So, I think that, and somebody said that, like, yeah, the first race, it'll be a little rocky because you're kind of like thrown off our patterns and we kind of have to figure things out. But by the second one, it's old hat because it's Formula One. They figure it out very quickly, right?
Yeah.
So, a new idea is only a new idea for one race, and then it's not a new idea anymore. They figured it out. That's their job. So, I mean, I think if I owned a racetrack, 100% I'd want a sprint race because you 100% want as many people to come on a Saturday as you do on a Sunday. And I've never been to any kind of race series that happens, right? It's like
Right.
Friday's a couple people, Saturday's a couple more people, Sunday's like everybody, you can't get anywhere. So, yeah, so I could see from a race promotion, if you can get as many people to come all 3 days and not just Sunday, that is what you would want. And so I think from the person trying to make money off of this, absolutely have a sprint race at my racetrack, even if it doesn't make any sense. I think as a fan, I think it's just like, I don't know. I'm not sold on its greatness. I think I don't know.
Well, I'm with you. Paul and I talked about it
There you go.
on the last one. We talked about it and we weren't.
Thankfully, you weren't just like, I thought it was a great idea, Grace. What the hell?
No,
do you know?
no. No, look, I'm not trying to be the contrarian here. I'm not trying to be a Luddite. And if they feel like mixing up a race weekend might bring more people and more excitement and more entertainment value, that's great and good on them. But my issue with is that kind of what Paul and I talked about. It feels like a race that's ran at about 70%. Because nobody wants to damage the car, nobody wants to blow an engine, nobody wants to do anything. I think in order to get the sprint race right, I think it has to have a more material impact on the points in the championship.
I agree.
Than just establishing the starting position of the race. I think it has to have a points impact more than it does. It should contribute and make them want to run all out. I think the regulations have to be refashioned to allow for more wear and tear on engines.
That's for sure.
And those kind of things. And I think the cost caps right now is going to be the one thing that the teams are going to use to maybe not do this as much because they have a cost cap. They can't afford damaged wings, damaged, wheels, any of that stuff. All that stuff takes wear and tear. Wheel guns take wear and tear, wheel gun trucks, everything takes wear and tear the more you use it. And so I think they have to take a holistic look at this, and from the perspective of the fans is one thing, but it's probably not the thing. It's probably not the prime mover in this equation for me. It's going to be the teams, their budgets, what they can afford to produce on a Saturday as far as a sprint race, what's realistic, how much risk's involved. It's increasing the amount of time that their drivers are driving, let's say, in anger, right? Versus a qualifying session. So I think there's a risk factor from an insurance premium standpoint. I just think a lot of things have to be considered here.
I think, and as somebody said at Silverstone, it was kind of like the race was on Saturday and it was red flagged and we watched the rest of it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not really in for that either. So I think that I get it, fine. And I think that's how the teams were too. I think that the comments in general when, Ted and everybody went to ask the teams how they thought about it, everybody's response was just kind of, well, we'll try it.
Yeah.
That's right up there with, well, he's my teammate. Like, that's the best thing you could muster was, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll try it. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think for a myriad of reasons, I don't think the teams have bought in on it either. But, and the FIA came to you and says, well, let's just try this thing. You go, okay, we'll try it. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling too. I don't know where the super positive and super happy people are.
That's his job. I mean, it's just Dominicali. He could be the only person that is pro and happy about this. That's his job. He is to be it's like, Ross Braun, like that's his job is to come out and say, we've got the rules figured out. Next year's going to be great. You're going to love the cars. You're going to enjoy it. Just stick around. Like,
right.
If Ross Braun's sad about it, we're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So let us
So,
know what you guys think. Yeah, I'm not sold on that. I wasn't sold on the first three, and I don't know that I'm going to be sold on seven unless they make some pretty
no,
big changes.
I don't think
Um,
so. I think just the promoters. I think those are the only
yeah,
winners.
right. So, let's see. Oh, hey, you guys know Max Verstappen took that engine penalty, that engine change penalty in Russia a week
Yep.
ago. Started from the back of the grid. And it now seems that it could be Lewis Hamilton's turn to take that engine penalty. When asked about it, Total Wolf said,
Get down.
he didn't say that. He said it could happen, but when and where hasn't been decided yet. He said that there's. Oh wait! Before I quote him, my thought of it, there's no doubt taking a penalty like that does hurt. And to be honest, though, I think Max made out like a bandit last week.
He sure did.
You know,
And it was so incognito. It was like all of a sudden it was like,
Yeah.
When the hell did you get on the podium?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. And it was like,
totally
when the hell did you get in second place? Right.
So that is another. I'm interrupting this story to have my other, Russian Grand Prix beef. Whoever their race director is, that person should never be allowed to direct a race again. That
They
was
missed all the big
horrible.
passes.
That was terrible. That was terrible. So I blame it on him that
I'm
I
with
just
ya.
was like, Max Verstappen, where'd you come from? Who knows? Because the race director was terrible. That was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. it
Noticeably
was-
terrible.
Yeah, I was disappointed. The critical pass for the lead of the race and didn't even see it.
No. And they'd cut away
Uh,
from stuff and you're like, no,
Wait.
what are you doing? Like,
And it drives me nuts when the little window over here in the running order is the most critical pass on the whole track,
Right.
and they're showing the huge picture is some pass for 18th. Meanwhile, the pass for 4th is over here on the left. I'm thinking, guys,
Right.
just swap them, you know?
it's not hard, right? It's like, right, because MotoGP will do that, right? They have
Yeah.
the list, but they'll show like little Mark Marquez and whatever's happening in like 5th and 6th is what's here, right?
Yeah.
And so that's good. Yeah, Marquez is, well, clearly this is dated options, but Fabio Quartararo is going to win, so we're just going to watch this little block of him right here because he's 10 minutes in front of everybody, and we're going to watch the fighting on the big screen. So yeah, I don't know. It was just, especially in Formula One, like passes don't happen that often. Do you not have eyeballs? Like when you're shooting a shot and you're like, oh, he's gonna take him. Like it's clear that's what's gonna happen. Why would you turn away? I was befuddled by whoever that person was.
I know.
They were
That's crazy.
terrible.
So anyway, here's
Total
what-
Wolf.
Yeah,
I'm
Total
back.
Wolf.
Put that cookie down now.
No, that's not what he said. He didn't say
It'd be great if he did though. Bono.
It would be great. Here's what he said, quote, most important is that you don't DNF because of a reliability issue. You can cope with swings, whether you finish second, third. I think that's okay. The championship is going to go on long. But if you don't finish, so ... an ellipse. So we're looking at parameters of the engines, making sure we don't suffer from any reliability problems, end quote. That's where Toto's head is right now. That's where he's at. That's what he's thinking.
Yes.
Why not take it in Turkey? Why not? Lewis is a champ. He'll run back. It's Turkey, for crying out loud. Who doesn't like Diabolica as much as Lewis does? He loves the track. He's going to do well there. He'll scythe his way through the field. He'll be on the podium. Go for it.
I mean, I have to take it somewhere.
Yeah, take it here.
Take it
Why
here.
not?
Like, don't wait
It's
until
Turkey.
don't wait till the end. Take it now.
Yeah, take it now. Get it out of the way, then we can battle for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you have like 5 more races to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that,
Just,
so.
yeah, just do
And
it.
hopefully, because apparently the track in Saudi Arabia isn't built yet. So
That's
on.
right. So
Get in there, Lewis.
get in there, Lewis. Just do it.
so hopefully, maybe you'll have like 4 or 5 more races. Who knows? Because I just thought, wow, that's talk about. I mean, sometimes we're like at the beginning of the season, we're like, well, that track's not done yet. Boy, they're cutting it close. Your race is literally in like 5 weeks, people.
Yeah.
I'm cutting it close.
May want to get the asphalt spreader out there.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that was really like,
Where's the guy with the white paint lines?
that's right.
Get
That's
outta
right.
here.
Get out there, build those curbs. It was
That's
just,
right.
I was just like, wait, that's this year, right? That's like,
Yeah.
like a month.
They're going to be gridding up and they're going to have course workers running around placing potted plants. You know, where's that potted? That goes to Mercedes.
Yeah, that's I just
Yeah.
think I was just really, I was like, well, they better get the lead out. And I mean, they're a very rich country, so maybe they don't have, supply chain concerns. But I would also be very concerned about the supply chain as somebody who like drives around on the weekends trying to find cat food because nobody has any cat food in stock. Yeah, supply chain's not great. I don't know, but
Yes.
maybe they don't. Maybe they have a secret supply of asphalt that I don't know. I don't know.
Well, they just make their own.
Yeah,
Just
like
mix it
churning
up.
butter.
It's a little salty.
If you
It's a
churn
little
it for
salty.
too long, it becomes whipped cream.
It does. It does. Yeah, it does. And then all of a sudden you go from asphalt to bitumen.
Yes, there you go. I don't know. I just think I just when I heard that, I did like a double take. Like, that's really soon. It's October, people.
Yeah, it's quick. Yeah.
Get it together.
Hey,
So-
in other news, Grace,
Yes.
Lando Norris shared a little bit about his rookie season. He said during his rookie season, he said he was depressed a lot of the time, worrying if he would still have a job in F1. He finished 11th, if you recall, in that season. Wasn't a banner season for him, but to be fair, he wasn't in a banner car either. So he was worried. He said, quote, I guess people, when you just watch TV, you don't realize many things that a driver goes through. He said this this morning on ITV. He said, it's a bit of a shame, but there's more programs now where you get to see what the driver is like behind the scenes and the amount of pressure and stress that they have to cope with. Especially at my age, coming into Formula One at 19, there's a lot of eyes on you. So dealing with all these kinds of things, that took its toll on me. And he said, this is from Sky Sports. Sky Sports article said that Norris, who arrived in F1 with stellar reputation, having shown as a junior, he added this. Says Sky, I was feeling like I don't know what's next. If this goes wrong, if I don't go out in the next session and perform, what's the outcome of all of this? Am I going to be in Formula One next year? If I'm not, what am I going to do? Because I'm not really good at many other things in life. So just all of that, and then feeling depressed a lot of time. Let me try this in English. So just all of that, and then feeling depressed a lot of the time. If I had a bad weekend, I just think I'm not good enough and things like that. I'm in a much better place now. It's much happier, and I can enjoy everything I do. I was reading this, Grace, so I was very interested, and I thought it was first of all, not everybody likes to come out and share,
Sure.
the things that they battle mentally.
Especially when you're so active, right? I think
Yeah, and on the rise, right? So not everybody's comfortable in sharing that because, especially in the Piranha club like Formula One, you're exposing possible weaknesses. You don't ever do that sort of thing. But it does speak to that fact that Formula One is a Piranha club. And in this essence, I thought it was interesting to hear Lando talk about that. As I think about Lando, watching him over the last 2 or 3 years, is when he came in, he was very much a young man.
Yeah.
And I don't take that as I don't mean that disparaging. I have a 19-year-old daughter. And so, I remember how I was at 18, 19 years old too, right?
Right.
So I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean he's a very young man and he had the maturity of a 19-year-old, and he giggled and he had a lot of fun and he did a lot of Twitch TV and a lot of online gaming and things that Gen Z would do, a person his age might do. And, and in hindsight, I look back and I thought, he's pretty goofy, he's a pretty young, goofy kid,
Yeah.
and in time, I think, they'll all kind of, get out of that. Lewis got out of that. Vettel got out of that, those kind of things. But then after reading this, I thought, that may have been a way for him to cope with that stress and that pressure,
Right.
is to having that sort of online presence, his friends and gaming and Twitch TV, and having that reassurance from fans and building organically, I would say, really on his own effort, kind of building, not 100% on his own. McLaren's done a lot to promote him,
Yeah,
but
right.
you know what I'm saying, building that own footprint and gaining that confidence. But the thing I would add to this conversation, Grace, is that there have been other young drivers that have joined very young. Max joined when he was 19, and his trajectory of his career is pretty stellar. So is Lando's. So is George Russell. So is Charles Leclerc. You know, even Pierre Gasly, who I think is doing real well. Albon has struggled. You know, there's other young drivers that there's more drivers that face that kind of anxiety and depression and pressure and stress that Lando does, that are shown the back door of Formula One, that ever make it to where Lando is, you know? And I got to think, Grace, you know, Paul and I have talked about this on Race Review Podcast, and you and I briefly, but there was a marked mental maturing and change in Lando when Daniel was announced. And when Daniel came in and Lando got that opportunity to come back, he turned his entire mental focus and approach and everything to this sport around. I'm not saying that it's better necessarily, because he's a young man and young men do what young men do. But it's been amazing. But, you know, spare a thought for all those young drivers that have come in and got, you know, pooped out of the back of F1, the machine, who never have that opportunity. And I would also argue, think of some of those veterans like, you know, Romain Grosjean and some of these guys, Robert Kubica, and some of these guys
Right.
that have come in, Nico Hulkenberg be another great example, who get shown the door and feel like they're still in their prime. They can still deliver. Yeah, it's difficult. It's a tough, tough, tough world in Formula One. And especially imagine approaching that as a 19-year-old. It's tough.
I think, I mean, I think it's highly relatable. I think we've all, you know, I mean, I have a job. I'm not a Formula One driver. I think that we've all been in a meeting where you just look around and you're like, oh shit, I'm in over my head, and the meeting starts now. Okay. You know, or so I think that you know, I think we all fight with that because our own inner critic is the loudest voice, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of self-doubt that other people don't necessarily have in you, or that um, I always think of when you apply for a job. I never like to tell people because people always go, oh, you'll get it. It won't be a problem. That's not really helpful when it's me. I
Yeah.
get it. You do. You have faith in me and you know I'll get it. And maybe I will. I probably will. And that's fine. But, you know, it's a lot of pressure. But then this is something they've been doing since they were 2. I mean, I've been in, you know, doing my job for 20 years. I haven't been doing it since I was like 4. So,
Right.
you know, I think I don't know what you do when what you've been doing since you were
Right.
4
Right.
and now you're 18 and you could fail. And I think, you know, we talk
Mhm.
about this a lot in football, because a
Yeah.
lot of guys get to the point of college football, and then when they go to the NFL, they don't make it, because that's
Right.
the first time they've ever lost. It's the first time they've ever not been the big man on campus. It's the first time they've ever, you know, like all
Yeah.
these things that until that moment they never experienced. They were very successful, and that's the first time they
Mhm.
lose. And so I think that happens in a lot of sports, and that's so while I think it's very relatable to us who aren't in that very visible thing, but then I think that's also relatable too, that you're just like, I'm having a bad day, and somebody goes, well, here's my day and it's worse. And you're like, I wasn't trying to compare. I'm just like a human and I'm having a bad day, and just go, I'm sorry, you're having a bad day. I think that as a Formula One driver, if people find that out, like, so there's the competitive edge of it. Like, do you want
Mhm.
other people to know that? But fans always would just be like, oh, you have the best job. What are you complaining about? Why are you, you know, like, you're not going to get any outside support, because it's that same sort of thing. Like, people think you have the dream job because it is their dream job,
Yeah.
and they don't actually know what it takes to be in that dream job. So they're always going to tell you, like, shut up, Lando, you have the greatest job in the world, and I'd kill to have your job. And maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. And I just think I mean, that's again, that we talk about that a lot in other sports because it's the same thing. If you played football here, you played when you were 2, you played Pop Warner, you played into college, you got into the NFL, and then suddenly it's like, well, you get spit out and you're a has-been and you're 25. What do you do? Right.
Right,
So
right.
I think it is a very tough place to be in for a human being. And I can't imagine it. I would find no comfort. I find no comfort when something happens on a project and people go, well, it wasn't your fault. Well, I know it wasn't my fault, but I still should have seen it coming. I should have asked questions. I should have done something to prevent this thing from happening. And I don't work in a field that's like, epic things happen and failures happen, but you never want your project to fail. And so somebody telling me, well, you're McLaren, you came in 11th. That's really great. That would not comfort me, as I guess what I'm saying is that I feel like I should have the best project. I should be running the best car. I should be doing everything I can to make this team better, even though I fully understand on paper, I can't. There's nothing.
Right.
McLaren, Spygate happened to McLaren, and there's not, it's a lot for them to get over that. And your expectations have to be managed by that. But when it's you and you're the face of that sport, I can't imagine people telling you like, that's the best we're going to get is ace.
Right. If
What
you
do
think
you do with that?
a lot of sports, a lot of these athletes and football, your example was a good example. Think about like Lewis Hamilton, and it's easy for to sit on a couch and say, Lewis has got, he makes $62 million a year. He's got 3 houses and lots of supercars and all that stuff. And isn't that nice? And it is nice. And everybody said, well, that would be my dream job. And I would, I would love to do that. And the question then is, yeah, but are you willing to put in the sacrifice that Lewis Hamilton did to get to that point, which is sacrifice pretty much all of his childhood, everything he had, right? And then we watched him struggle through that maturing process in the very early years in the bright light and pressure and stress of Formula One. And he made some mistakes and, he struggled with it and the rift with his dad and the relationships and all those sort of things, they play on anyone. And Lewis is human and they play on him too, and they're difficult to navigate at his age right now. Look at the different things he's sort of thought he might get into after F1. And Lando's point is, if I don't make it, this is all I know.
Right.
And that's what you said. He's been doing it since he's 4. And so is Lewis, right? And this is truly, if you would say, is Lewis good at a lot of things? I'm sure he is. But he's not as good at those things as he is driving and winning championships.
It's his whole
life
in a way that it isn't our occupations, right?
Right.
I like my job. I'm good at my job. It's not my life, right? Like it's not something there's no expectation that I'm like on the track, in the gym, selling products. Like, and I think that's, we often talk about what drivers end up at what teams, and that there's more to it than just driving skill, right? Like you really have all these other, I would call them ancillary tasks, but like the meet and the greets and the kissing the babies and the hawking the stuff and and some of that we don't see in the United States because we don't see the commercials and they're not everywhere. But I think you could easily see how here football players are in every commercial, right? And you can see that that's how that sport would be in another country. But there's all these other things that, sometimes I have to work extra, or sometimes maybe I have to take a call on a Saturday, but it's not my whole life.
No, not like
way.
these guys.
You
think of the sacrifices that Schumacher made to get where he was. He didn't come from money either, and neither did Vettel, right?
No.
And neither did Lewis. And so it's difficult. And I thought it was just an interesting thing to share about Lando, because I think Lando has made a real turn in his mental approach, his maturity level, his focus. And I would almost argue, do you remember, Grace, back when the first raft, I think it may have been Max, 19 years old, and we had a podcast and we were asking, is this too young for Formula One? We're talking about teenagers here, folks. Past champions didn't get into this sport until late 20s, or early 20s. And so now we're talking about teenagers, and how young is too young. And I know there's been lots of words written about that and lots of podcasts, but in this case, it is, seemingly finding these rare talents like Lando Lewis and others, Max Verstappen, another one at 19, and watching them come into the sport and the pressure and stress that they have to do. I would almost argue, having seen Lewis's development, having seen Max's development, I would almost, and even Charles Leclerc, to be fair, I would almost argue that Lando has made the biggest transition from a 19-year-old rookie to an all-out hero in Formula One,
Right.
poised to do very great things, who races. Yes, he made the wrong call in Russia. All rookies are going to make these bad calls until they, get the experience in racecraft. But he's really turned his career around as driving like a real champ. He really is.
Yeah, and I think that absolutely. And I think the support of the team, I think that's totally a Zach Brown effect on that team, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think Zach has
is
done that. Yeah.
He is the kind of person that you would want at the end of that meeting to scare the shit at you to go, you did a
Yep.
great job. And I'm glad you did that. Or when you
Yeah.
did this thing, that was really good. Or even if it crashed and burned, he went, it's okay. You have to do another one tomorrow. It'll be better.
Yeah.
Zach Brown is totally the kind of person that you want, because I think often we think that people have, like, I often joke, right? I know that you also watch Hell's Kitchen, but if you watch Gordon Ramsay shows that are only in the United States, they only ever show Gordon Ramsay as this like hard-nosed yells at people. But if you watch the British version of the same shows, they show that he's actually very balanced, right? He's a coach, right? He is hard on you, but then he goes and does team building stuff. And then he does do that on Hell's Kitchen. Then he pulls you aside and goes, here's, you did this really good thing, and we're going to try this other thing, or just shape this up. So as you get to the end of the show, you see more of that, that you see more prevalently on the English versions of his shows. But I think we just think everybody has to be just the hard-nosed Gordon Ramsay, and that there isn't this balance. And I think the same thing happens, is that we see somebody like a Zach Brown and we think, he's coddling those drivers or something like that. And I don't think that's it at all. I think you
No.
have to be positive and supportive, and yet you push him and you want the best out of them. But Lando's his own worst critic. Of course he wants the best out of himself. So your job is to support him so he can be his best. I mean, it's very
Right.
similar to, I was going to say parenting or caring for any teenager, right? Like, because I guess they are teenagers, right? It's the same kind of like, you're about to approach a point where all they can do is advise you.
Yeah.
I no longer can tell you, when you're 4, I can tell you, go do this shit because you're 4. But you're 18, you're going to be 20. All I can do is advise you and help you make good decisions, and hope that I prepared you to take on the world the best that you can. But
Right.
you're on your own. And so I think that's Zach Brown really does that really well. And I think he's just really turned that whole organization around. And I think that, especially in contrast to Christian Horner, who definitely plays the character of the hard-nosed Gordon Ramsay all the time. He likes playing the character of the bad guy. I don't think he's really like that all the time. I think he just likes that persona, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because he
I
wouldn't
think
be as
Helmet's
successful
that
if he
way,
was.
but I don't think
Well,
Christian's
that may
really
be
that way.
true. And again, I always think of, Paul's, like Christmas wish was that they just should like send him to the wrong track, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like,
No, I think,
oh,
and just imagine though, speaking of McLaren, Lewis didn't get that. He had
Nice.
oh no.
a nice one, so that was difficult. So anyway, let us know what you guys
Yeah.
think about it. I think
I
it
think
was an
it's great.
interesting
I think-
topic. Yeah.
And I hope
enjoyed it.
I don't know about you, but I definitely came from the generation of the like, yes, you may be sad, push that down. We don't talk about that. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, so I just hope that kids are better able now to have some tools to deal with things, as opposed to just push it down. You're really happy, push it down. You're sad, you're push it down, right? Like, just you have doubts, push it down, right? Like,
Yeah. Right.
I just hope that kids from things like this and from other professional athletes who are role models and who people do look up to, and that they say, yo, I
Right.
have a bad day too, or I struggled with depression, or I had an anxiety attack while I was out on the court. I think people need to hear this. And I hope it arms kids to be better at dealing with everything that life brings to you, without just push it down and pretend like it didn't happen. We don't talk about that.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's good that they have those sort of tools, like you said, and they're able to do that. I mean, yeah, you're right, because when you were young, you didn't have those outlets. You ended up playing chicken on tractors, by the canal, trying to, go down there. You were like the Lori Singer of Western Pennsylvania, and people vying for your attention, and you were trying to set up a dance. Anyway, all right.
Way to bring that around. Very good.
Thanks, man.
Nicely done.
Well, you are blonde.
Well, thanks. But yes.
So all right.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lando. Right on.
Yes, right on.
Glad
All
you
right.
said it.
F1 and the FIA discuss timetables for the weekend. This is Hat Tip Motorsport. FIA Formula One race director Michael Massey says that discussions are in hand about having flexibility of the weekend schedule when bad weather is expected. He was asked if the TV schedules were the restrictive part of making these big flexible changes, and he said, quote, which I would have thought too. I think it's a perfectly valid question from motorsport. He said, quote, it is not so much TV schedules dependent. It is something that we'll be discussing in the coming weeks. We said following Spa that there were a whole lot of strategic discussions that need to take place between the FIF1 and 10 teams, and that is going to be one of the discussions at the strategy group meeting. Those discussions will happen in proactive manners, so we will have a look at it and see where we get to, end quote. In Russia, you remember, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, in Russia, the FIA moved the schedule a little bit to allow for the F3 race to be ran a day earlier than planned due to the threat of the rain over that. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, they're doing that because on the heels of the debacle that happened at Spa, they're, gun shy on this thing. And so now, but most likely, they put the thing with Spa sort of pushed this issue, I think. And even though this F3 race was a title deciding race and they moved it, right? But Michael Massey says I'm full of BS for thinking that way because he said that Spa had no impact. He said, quote, nope, not at all.
But he didn't say what did.
Right.
He just said, you're all wrong. It's not about the TV schedule. But he didn't say what it was that really, I'm like, oh,
right.
So then what was it? If it wasn't what we all thought, which is the TV schedule, which I do think is reasonable. I mean, and plus you have fans. I think that's the other thing too. I've been, nothing's worse than going to any event, or I've had that conversation. You're at, some race and it's Sunday and it's pouring down rain. And you're like, well, can we stay through Monday? Do you think the hotel will have space for it? Like, there's all these logistics because you were planning to leave Sunday after the race. You weren't planning to stay till Monday if there was a race. So it's like it becomes a whole challenge for the fans as well if you don't have the race when you have it. But I just think that's odd that he was like, well, it wasn't because of the television, but I didn't tell you what it was. And I'd like to know what the whole lot of strategic discussions they got going on there, Michael. Like,
well, that is kind of interesting.
That email.
Because they were saying, did you move that? And he didn't say, well, here's all the strategic discussions.
No,
these are the issues. But he did say, as far as that weekend, he says, let's look at Sunday for what it was. If you look at earlier in the day, those that were there at the time, that was a window that looked okay, which is why we brought the F2 cars into the pit lane. Obviously, that diminished, and we've always run by the principles on those scenarios, which is to go session by session, which is what we did. With regards to F3 are being moved to Friday, the conditions looked as they did. Probably the overdoing factor in that scenario is that it was a last round of the championship and we had the ability to fit it in a program. So you've got to take all those things into account. Spa has certainly not come into it, end quote.
Yeah, I was trying to think which...
Okay.
I mean, the other thing too is this has happened before, right? Was it 2007 China? Wasn't that the typhoon race? Like, it's not like this is never, it rains in places, right? I get it. You try to schedule races so that it's like 90 degrees outside, right? That's what you want. You want your ambient track temperature to be hot. I've always joked that if you as a fan are sitting in those stands and you feel comfortable, it's not the right temperature for those cars, right? Like that's, if you're happy as a person sitting in those stands, this race is not going to be good. So, it's not for your comfort. It is for the ambient temperature of the track and the tires and the cars running. And so I don't know why this seemed like we've never talked about this before. This has never come up as conversation that it might pour buckets of rain. Like, I mean, I think we all joke like, where are our boats? There's no pit lane boats. that's always a highlight of a rain race is when everybody
Right.
like grabs whatever trash is in the garage and makes boats that they run down the pit lane. Like, happens enough that we were like sad that something didn't happen like that. So I don't know. I just thought that was like, I don't know. All right, Michael Massey, I see your
There was
trickeration
some,
here.
yeah, there was some crafty wordsmithing there.
Yeah, I see
Yeah.
your game, buddy, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It always rains. I don't Has there ever been a season where there's not a wet race? No. And it does sometimes rain a lot. So you should
does.
have a plan.
It always rains at Le Mans.
And I have to have a time that calls it. I mean, but the whole red flag time was just like, we on in 10 minutes. Nope, just kidding. No, it's by this. Like, we couldn't figure out when
Yeah.
the 2-hour clock started. We couldn't figure, it was just like,
I know.
I don't know. On top of that, like, just pick something, Michael. You're in charge. Just go with it.
Yeah, I agree.
You decided. You pick it. Like,
Just pick it and go.
yeah, and just
I
say,
know.
I made the best decision I could in the moment. That's what we're going with.
That's it.
Fine. You're in charge, but make a
That's
decision and stick with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed very, very odd. Like, was it on? Should I go do some laundry? Should I keep sitting here and listen to Crofty be Crofty? What am I doing?
Well, yeah, that's kind of, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm kind of, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's a tough call. It's not a job I want. I don't want to be Michael Massey, but
You don't?
no, I think I'd be Dominicali. I think I could. That's we're like, yeah, I go out and talk to the people, but I'm not the person that everybody's sending their emails to. I don't want to be that guy.
You could be the Dominicali. I like it.
Yeah, I like that. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person that everybody comes and yells at all the time. That's fine. That's good. I want to be fun Red Bull. I don't want to be serious Red Bull.
Right.
No.
All right, that makes sense.
That's why I paid the big bucks, though.
Right. Let's see. What else are we going to cover here? We've got some other news, don't we? We do have some other news. Let me look here. Oh, this just in. So Team Ineos, you may remember those as the sponsor for the British cycling team at Tour de France, and you'd be right. But you also probably know that they're the one third of the owner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, and you'd be right. But they also have this big boat, and this big boat participates in a big race called the America's Cup, and they just got beat in the America's Cup. They're not happy about it. No, sir, not happy at all. And they are now going to double down on the Mercedes Applied Science division.
All right.
The Mercedes Applied Science division. Now, if you weren't sure what that is, that's the incubator group that was spun out of the Mercedes F1 team. And it just so happens that one James Allison is still loitering around over there at Mercedes. And
he's Adrian Newey now.
Exactly. It just so seems that James is going to be more involved with the effort to build a better boat.
There you go.
Now, does that smack of the Adrian Newey years when he pined for the open waters, but Christian Horner body checked him a bit and gave him enough leash just to pee just outside the fenced-in Red Bull yard? You know, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was always what he told Ron
Valkyrie,
Dennis.
anyone? Yeah.
At the end of every season, it was like, well, Ron, I'm going to go work on boats this year. I'm
Right.
done.
I'm done.
And then he went to Red Bull, and we don't hear that anymore.
Right. And he said, well, I'm gonna go work on boats. I want to design boats.
He
And
was
then
my-
they'd figure out some way. They give him some more money.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I should do. Is I should just each time I want to raise, is say, I'm gonna go work on boats. I'm gonna go work on
Wow.
boats.
See, I think people would call my bluff just for fun, even if they
I
didn't
think they
want me to
would.
go. I think they would just call it to see. Well, I've never
Yeah,
seen
Grace.
Grace on a boat before. Let's see how this goes.
You go work on
Good.
those boats, Grace. You go ahead and do that. Yeah, I like
Because
it.
I'd have to follow through. I think that's the other thing too, is I'd have to double down.
Right.
Now I have to buy a boat. Now I have to
Yeah.
oh my God, I miss say a word And Flip's like, I don't think that's a word. I'm like, it is a word. And now I have to double down. I have to come up with the definition.
Right.
I have to use it in a sentence. I have to convince him it's a word, even though I know it's not a word.
You'd show up and you'd have your pen. All right. Okay. So what the hell is a jib?
Yeah, it's going to be a real quick trick to, REI to figure out what the hell my boat's going to do, because I can't back down now.
I agree. All right. Let's see what else.
All right.
Let's turn the page here. All right. It seems that Lewis took the high road after the British Grand Prix by calling Max. Lewis said, quote, I called him after Silverstone, but again, I don't mean to be patronizing, but I'm much older. And it was important for me to call and to be able to break the ice, he told ESPN, or as we like to call it, ESPN. I feel he's a tremendous talent and I'm enjoying racing with him. Do I agree with everything he does? It doesn't even matter. What matters is that he does him and he will learn. And all I can control is what I do and how I handle things, end quote. There you go.
So, I mean, I think that has nothing to do with Max Verstappen's age and everything to do with who he is.
Yeah.
I don't see him as like, hey, let's pick up the phone and chat like buddies kind of guy.
No, he's not that kind of guy. He's kind of...
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
That's Max.
That's it. So I think, I think that, I referenced when they were in the, the interview bullpen afterwards in Russia, and, Lewis walked over to Lando, was just like, oh, this sucks, doesn't it? Right? Like, I just thought, right, that's good. That's good. But Lando is a receptor for that kind of like, interaction.
Yeah.
I just don't see Max ever really like being a receptor for that kind of interaction in a way that other people were like, it is hard. And Lewis has been there. Lewis has been in the exact same shoes that Lando's in. Like right now, this seems terrible. And you can know on paper that it won't always be this way, but in that moment, that doesn't matter. My heart hurts, right? Like it's hard to get through that. So
K-Mags was kind of that way too. Maybe it's a Dutch thing, K-Mags,
maybe
wasn't really into all that emotional stuff and
maybe I just grew up in the wrong country. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not casting aspersion because I know some incredibly wonderful Dutch people. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Again, I always joke that Petter Solberg is the race car driver that breaks the Finnish in non-commutative, not very excited kind of person mold, right? So for every Kimi Räikkönen, there's a Petter Solberg. So there's a lot of variety out there.
And there's also a Mika, kind of a big deal hockey.
Yeah. Although I think I did bring this up on our last podcast. Mika Hakkinen still looks great. I just like to put that out there.
Fantastic.
That guy, whatever his skin routine is,
I don't know.
He looks great.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what's he using?
I don't know.
Lancome? I don't know what's going on there.
Finish doesn't crack? I don't know. I just
Max Factor? See, I brought that back to Max.
Very good. But I thought that was great. And I can't remember if I already brought that up, but he looks so good. I'm going to bring it up twice if I already have. But
okay.
Yeah, I need to know. He should put that on Twitter. I need to know what his routine is because he's looking young. He's looking good.
Right.
And but I think, I don't know. I mean, Lewis can do that. I think that's who Lewis is too, right? I think Lewis is the kind of I want to be your friend kind of guy. And
I mean, hey, look, Lewis wears his heart on his sleeve. He's always been that way.
I just think, I've said this about people I've worked with. There are people that I work with or that I have worked with past tense, and I love working with them. I never want to see them outside of work. And there are people that I love going to a bar with or I love hanging out with. I don't ever want to work with them.
Yeah.
So that can be fine.
Most of my coworkers would be the former.
You don't have to.
I can do a ton of work, but boy, I wouldn't want to do anything outside of work.
No, that's right. So I just think that, you have all different kind of personalities. And if you think about Formula One, like our own jobs, some personalities are going to click and some aren't, and that's fine.
Right. You know, a smart person would do. You remember not the American version, but the British version of The Office with Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
They ought to do a sitcom with all the drivers working in an office instead of driving fast cars on a grid, but they all work in an office together and all the different personalities, and that would be hilarious.
Like the old Yamaha commercial where they made Jorge Lorenzo be the
Yes.
janitor.
Yes.
George.
George. Yeah, just as George. Not
I haven't
Jorge.
thought about that in years.
Love it. That's great. I love it.
We just squeegee the windows. Very
That was great.
unhappy.
Yeah, I love it.
Because they shot it
All
like
right.
the ESPN commercials where they're like the like
Yes.
funny in between commercials. The
Yeah.
Sports Center. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
All right. Let's see what else is in the news. I know Grace has been clamoring for a Qatar Grand Prix since
I
watching the bikes
sure
run
have.
there.
Yeah.
But a new 10-year deal has some folks wondering if F1 should really have 4 races in the Middle East. What say
They
you, Grace?
have the money. I
They
think
do
that's
have
why we have 4
money.
races in the Middle East, right?
Yes.
Whether or not we should or shouldn't, they're going to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I don't know. What do you guys think about this Qatar Grand Prix? I mean, it's as flat as glass.
I think that's the bigger thing, right? Is that I think that the tracks aren't very exciting.
They may produce good bike races, but I'll be very intrigued to see how it does on Formula One races.
Well, and I think some of it is because it's the first race,
right?
So much like Australia,
right?
I think if Australia was somewhere else in the calendar, it might not be so like, yay, Australia, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's the first race. It could be a dogma race. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's the first MotoGP race.
Right.
Yeah,
we're so dehydrated. We're just like,
Right.
any sort of water
Right.
will
It's
take
an
it.
it's
Right?
a MotoGP oasis. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that.
I don't know. I'm a little torn on this whole thing, to be honest with you. And here's the problem. It's a 10-year deal. If we don't like it, you can't get your money back. I mean, who inked a 10-year deal?
Somebody with a lot of money.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, what happens if it's just a dog of a track and it doesn't produce very good racing? I got 10 years of watching this thing.
We're still at Abu Dhabi. I mean, that's not been a problem.
Let's wade into the water a little bit. Could we just, all right, let's do a 2-year deal, see how it goes. If that goes well, then we'll do an extension. Well, hell,
like
I'll go
dating,
to the wall
right?
on a 3-year deal.
This is like married at first sight. Like,
Yeah.
let's slow your roll. Maybe we should go for some coffee first.
This is almost like an arranged marriage or something.
Yeah. I think
What the heck's going on? Why 10 years?
I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know.
Anyway.
But
I know.
I think that I think they have both the money and they have geopolitical gain as well.
Yeah.
Right. I have a big event. Take me seriously.
Yeah.
I get a seat at the table.
Exactly. All right, moving on. Hey, this is just a headline I read. Lewis Hamilton, Neymar, and Kylian Mbappe? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm a Yankee. What do I know? They partied at supermodel Cindy Bruna's glitzy 27th birthday bash in Paris. The Met Gala, now over at kicking it at Cindy's crib. Man.
I don't know who any of these people are. Well, I know who Neymar is, and Lewis Hamilton, but I don't know who. I don't know.
I'm just telling you.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
There's no stopping him.
There isn't. I just think. Wow, I don't know. I don't know really what to
No,
make
it
of that
doesn't. It
story.
doesn't require a comment because it's just a headline. I don't know what to say. Okay, we're moving on.
All right.
All right. Hey, Christian Horner. This one I did like. Christian Horner says he likes winding Toto Wolff up.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't like winding Toto up, right?
Right.
Yeah, you keep putting a little pressure on him. Finally, he cracks.
Put that cookie down now.
See? Christian Horner said, let's see, what did he say? Oh, he said, of course, this is the first time Mercedes and the first time Toto have ever been in a situation where he's been challenged. He said this to Channel 4. He's been in a situation where he came into the team, the drivers were already signed, the engine was already in place. He's done a great job to keep the team winning, but there's been no real competition. So this is the first time it's been a true scrap, a true competition. And there is a respect, I think, between the teams, but I think we operate in very different ways. I very much want to be on the front line. I sit on the pit wall with the strategists and the engineers. Totos will sit in the garage next to the press guy.
Yeah.
So there are different functions, there are different roles, there are different outlooks. But of course, the competition is fierce. I think that's the key thing about this championship. We're loving the competition, and the more Toto gets wound up, the more fun it becomes. End quote. It's tomorrow, Toto.
I think the best is that I like that for a while, Bonato wasn't sitting on the pit wall. He was hanging out with the engineers, which I just think he was just like, I like those guys. Like, he's just gonna go hang out with the people that he used to know, right?
Right.
Like, those are his people. He's gonna go stand over there with them and not be on the pit wall anymore. That can be other people. I just think that's like I work with a lot of statisticians, and I could see them very much being like, this is great that I'm in charge of this meeting, but I'm actually going to go sit in that corner because that's where I feel more comfortable, and those are my people. So you lead the meeting.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
So I just really like that Bonato was just like, I don't want to be out here anymore. I'm going to be over there. But I do like the idea of Toto's like concerned about his likes on Instagram or something, which is what that makes it sound like.
And in the
he's
garage with the press guy.
No, they said something bad about me, right? Like, that's totally
that's great.
That is great. You know what the best party though is still, anytime I hear the Spice Girls, I always think of that picture that you once had as fashion when Bernie Eccleston and wasn't it Helmut Marko and Christian Horner all went to the Spice Girls concert together?
Yeah.
That
was great. They had Spice Girl t-shirts on.
Yeah, that was great. Bernie Eccleston and his Spice, who are these old people? I mean, I would be at a Spice Girls concert, and I'm an old person. They're really old people at the Spice Girl concert, right? Like,
that was
great. Who are these old people at this concert? But that's
all
the
right.
party that Lewis should have been at.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
It's time for Albin's Cats. Yes, it's that time where Grace usually finds some really fun and interesting things around the Formula One world to talk about. All right, Grace. You know what we're going to talk about this week? I'm going to talk about, now people knew that it was my birthday back in September.
It was 2 weeks ago.
It's September 17th. Yep. It's the same. If you ever wonder, it's the same day as Damon Hill and Sterling Moss. And which young guy? Is it Albon?
Oh, I don't know.
One of the young guys also has that. Or is it?
I
can't remember. Anyway.
Damon, I'm not petty or salty Hill. Yeah,
Damon. Yeah, exactly. Damon Schumacher ruined my career. Hill, that guy.
It runs in the family.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so Grace sent me birthday gifts, but she had several small gifts, and she got them all from like Redbubble or Etsy or whatever, and they would just show up periodically. They trickled in. Clark, that's the gift that just keeps on giving, Sure does. And it just kept showing up. So she sent a few sticker packs that had all of these awesome sayings that Kimi would say, why are you still talking to me? It was just awesome. All these different sayings.
You keep answering me,
and
right?
You keep answering me. Yeah.
I feel like since it's Kimmy's last year, I thought that was very appropriate.
Oh yeah.
And again, great marriage advice out of context.
It is.
I mean, Kimmy could solve the world's problems. Just like stick one of those stickers on it. And yet you still answer me. I think that's
great.
Steering wheel, all of them. This is just a hobby.
It's just a hobby, right?
It's just a hobby.
That's great. And then another one is, so if you're a long time listener of this podcast, you'll know that way back in the day, so if there's a lot of Nico Hulkenberg fans out there, then
besides his mom,
and then there was Nick Heidfeld was the pre-Nico Hulkenberg. So he predated Nico Hulkenberg.
Yes.
He's a great German driver, wonderful guy. I really liked Nick. And so I was a big Nick fan, right? And so Grace would always give me a hard time that the Nick Heidfeld fan club consists of two people, his mom and me. Right? And so,
how many Nick Heidfeld fans have you ever run into? None.
Yeah, Nick's awesome. I love Nick.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so Nick, so she got this mug that says, I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember exactly, but it's like, in life, whatever you do, always be yourself, unless you can be Nick Heidfeld. In that case, always be Nick Heidfeld. It was great.
It was so random because, you know, you never think, we'll just put Nick Heidfeld gift into
Yeah.
Google and see what we find. It actually hit something. So
There it was. It was perfect. It was great.
So there's at least 3 people in the Nick
Yeah.
Heidfeld fan club.
Right.
That guy, you,
Right.
and Nick Heidfeld's
And
mom.
Nick's mom, exactly. And the coup de grace of gifts that came in has to be the pair of dress socks that the entire socks, both socks, all the way around, all the way up and down, are pictures of little Valtteri Bottas heads.
With like the most like
It's great.
sour and like it's not like smiling. He's just like
No. He looks bitter. He looks
Yeah.
like he's resigned himself to being a wingman, a tail gunner. He
Oh,
looks
man.
pissed off. He's got a little bit of
Yeah.
a beard going.
no joy in that picture.
There's no joy. It just looks like this grumpy Finn who is just pissed off at the world. And you know that if you're gonna get some Valtteri Bottas socks, you'd have a picture of him smiling. No.
No.
This is like the grumpy Valtteri.
I just love the idea of you like wearing those in some meeting and somebody being like, what the hell?
What the heck are those? Well,
That would be great.
it's not my Bombas socks, my Bottas socks.
That's right.
That was
Yes.
great.
And I just thought, not only that is, you know, we often talk about, you know, how Twitter or social media can be such a like terrible place, and it
Yeah.
can be.
It's a shitbox.
Yeah.
It can be a shit box. But then, you know, I think there's just really some really funny fans that we have out there, fans of the show, people that had some really great commentary. And I just think, you know, that's what makes, you know, for every time I'm like, don't read it, Grace. Don't read it, Grace. Keep scrolling, right?
Yeah.
Somebody put something really funny, and I just think we have some really very, very clever you know, listeners.
Right.
And I just really appreciate everybody that you know, supports us always and then sends really funny stuff on any sort of social media platform.
Yeah.
It makes my day.
It does. Makes my day.
So
Too. Yeah, I agree.
and I think my favorite has to go out to Prof Palm talking about your socks. Because you posted a picture. So if
I
you go
did.
to Twitter, look at Todd's, but he posted the socks because I think you really have to kind of see
You do.
here, wait, you got to see the socks.
Oh, Grace has shown them. There they are. It's so awesome.
That's great. So his response was, I'm perfectly aligned with the team expected functions as Bottas apparently. These socks are to punch the hole in the air to allow the shoe to slip on faster. Like, I just love the idea of like your foot is Lewis Hamilton
That is so good. Yes.
and the socks are
And
like
the
there
sock
to just
is
like lead
is the
Lewis through.
wingman.
Yes.
It's the wingman.
So I thought everybody was good fun, good fans, and I really I definitely
Yes.
appreciate.
The socks give me a toe.
That's that's why
There's a
you
lot
can't
of puns there. You get all those. Yeah.
That's why you can't have Perez socks, because he is like not really
No.
doing that this
Don't
half
get a
of the
toe
season.
with Perez.
No, giving you the toe, like that should just be written. Like, isn't there
Giving you the
socks that
toe.
like they have gold tip toes or something like that's a brand
Gold toe.
thing?
Yes.
Oh, look, very catchy. The branding there, yeah, you could just have that. Like that should be somebody's sock company, right? Giving you
Yeah.
the toe, and it
Yeah.
should just be all race themed socks.
It is. It is. When I was young, I used to, and I've told this on the podcast before, I always cheat my dad out of a holiday gift. You know, we were house of 3 boys, right? And we didn't know what we were getting. And I was a young kid, and we'd end up, you know, getting him a pair of gold toe dress socks and a bottle of Brut by Fabergé, and, you know, half-ass wrap it all up in a ball. And there, Dad, you know, and I was like, oh, these are great. You know,
Aw.
he'd always act like they were the greatest thing. So I always tell that to my daughter, and I know one of these Christmases, and it could be soon, she's going to
She's
give
gonna
me a pair of gold toe dress socks and a bottle of Brut by Fabergé.
But make sure she crunches. She has to make sure she like crunches up the paper. Like,
yes.
don't do a very nice wrapping job. Like, crunch that all up and
Yes.
yeah, like
exactly
use
right.
stuff from last year. I think
Exactly.
that's right on your dad, right?
Yeah.
I just think
know.
I think my dad just wants like peace and quiet.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I want for
right.
Christmas? All y'all just shut the hell up and sit still. How about
Right.
that? Not now, we're adults. It's different, right? But as kids, I
Right.
think that's all my dad ever really wanted for
Right,
any holiday.
right.
It was just like everybody to just take a deep breath for like 10 minutes and calm down.
Right,
Stop trying to beat the
right.
crap out of each other.
Exactly.
We were this will tell you, we were joking. So my parents were down to visit this weekend. And you know how I'm sure your kids did it, like you teach kids sign language because they can sign things before they can verbalize things,
Correct.
right? And I always joke that we should actually teach kids the like referee football gestures because that's what I needed, like face mask, horse
Right.
collar. Like these are the signs that I needed. Yeah, time out, right?
time
Like
out.
these are the signs that I needed as the youngest, not like morph, please. Like
More.
I don't
And that's-
need. I need, horse collar. That's what I need.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
Flip goes, Grace, not everybody grew up the way you did. But I think that's
I
very
did.
telling. Yeah, see, but you had older brothers.
I had three boys and I was the youngest. Yeah, I got the crap beat out of me every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I think that my dad just really wants like no horse collaring for like 5 minutes. Could you just
Right.
be quiet?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
I'm just
totally
going to
get it.
drink my morning coffee in peace. That's all I want.
That's all I want.
Merry
yeah.
Christmas to me.
Right, exactly. All right, well, that does it for this podcast. Be sure to go to the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it with quorum and civility. As always, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. If you've ever felt compelled, and I'm not suggesting that you should, but if you ever would be, you can go to that website, theparcfermé.com. On the right-hand side, it says support us. You can click on PayPal or Patreon. It'll take you to a place you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And it goes a long way because we could not do this without you and wouldn't do it without you. So if you aren't a Patreon supporter, please find one that is and pat them on the back and thank them for helping produce a podcast that you apparently enjoy if you're listening. Also, if you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us some love, give us a good rating over there. We'd appreciate it as always. And I believe we have a Turkish Grand Prix coming up, so I'm going to have to go find that Charsley dude.
Right.
Somewhere out on a race course somewhere, I'm sure, leading the Heart of Racing number 23 Aston Martin to a championship. So let's
right.
hope they do that. And until that time, when I come back next week to do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long, Grace.
See you in 2 weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.